You are listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
What's up, y'all? This is One Royal Way here on Kansas City Sports Network. I'm Joel Penfield, Jordan Foote joining me as always. Josh can't tonight. He is not here, but in his place, pinch hitting, is Peter Appel. He is the co-founder of Just Baseball Media and a busy man in the podcast scene, co-host of the Just Baseball Show with Aram Layton and Jack McMullen. Check that out if you want a national baseball show. Brand new show with him and Angels reliever Tucker Davidson, the Arm Barn, and a daily show called Not Gambling Advice. Peter is awesome at what he does there, trying to get things going on the gambling side. He really knows what he's talking about. I guess unless it's college baseball, I know you're struggling a little bit there right now.
Yeah, right now in college baseball, I'm like 31-31, and my problem has been the parlays have not been good. The straight bets have been fine. It's my first season betting college baseball. I'm more focused on MLB and NFL, but thank you for the kind words surrounding the podcast stuff. I feel like I'm talking baseball all day long, which is my favorite thing to do.
It's my favorite thing to do as well. This is what gets me through the week. I don't get to do it all day long like you do. I got the corporate world stuff that takes up about 8 hours of my day, but getting to do this is awesome. And like I said, Just Baseball Media, guys, go check it out. They do some incredible stuff over there, justbaseballmedia.com. Articles, podcasts, videos, anything. Go check them out on YouTube as well, and then anywhere you get your podcasts. Peter and Aram and Jack do an awesome job covering the sport from a national perspective, and that's why we have Peter on today to talk about the Royals and what he thinks about the 2023 season. So we'll jump right in there. When you came on the show last fall, it was us basically it was a bitch fest of what is going on and what's going wrong with the Royals. And that same day was actually the day that Dayton Morse got fired, if I recall. So a lot has changed since then. Brand new manager, new general manager. Seems like they're really leaning heavily into analytics and trying to take that next step forward as an organization. So I'm just curious how you have seen the Royals offseason. It's basically the same team outside of Brian Yarbrough, Jordan Lyles, and Aroldis Chapman, but bringing in Matt Quatraro, Brian Sweeney, Zach Bove, I'm just curious how you think that if it's changed your perspective any on the Royals in 2023.
I think the Royals are in a better spot than a lot of teams that are currently rebuilding because they know their flaws, which is something that a lot of teams that are in the dumps right now don't. They aren't fixing the problems. The Royals see their weaknesses when it comes to the pitching side, and they added two really good coaches in the dugout. From a player perspective on an offseason, no, they didn't really do much, but I think the Royals know that they're still a few years away, but the young players is what I'm most excited to watch from the Royals this year. Bobby Wood Jr. is obvious. Vinny Pasquantino, who I know we're going to talk about, is obvious, but a guy like MJ Melendez, who we currently see in the World Baseball Classic, he's a really exciting player. He kind of has that Dalton Varsho build where he's just such a great athlete that, yeah, he could catch, but he could also go play the outfield and steal a couple bases for you. The Royals are one of the young teams who I'm not expecting to win the Central this year, but I am happier with them than a lot of the other teams who finished in the 70-win range.
Yeah, and they were really stuck, and it was self-inflicted, obviously, but they were stuck in this constant lull of, well, they want to compete and they want to get better, but they aren't making the necessary moves, and they have some veteran talent. They have some older guys, but they didn't want to get the young guys up. They said the young guys weren't ready. Then they thrust some young pitchers up who may or may not have been quite ready yet. Then the young hitters started to come up. Then they didn't have the infrastructure, right, in place to facilitate that growth. Now they're finally hitting like almost the entire reset button while still having a lot of that core talent there. I'm just interested to see, man, you mentioned the young core they have. They're going to keep adding pieces. Like, I'm completely with you. I don't think they're going to win the division. I wouldn't pick them to make the playoffs. Hell, I wouldn't even necessarily pick them to win 80 games. But, like, can they be a entertaining 73, 74-win team, even an entertaining 72-win team? I don't think that's too crazy to expect. I think simply having the ability to finally swallow their pride, make the right moves, kind of get a fresh, clean start. And Joel has been big on this. I think that's a really, really big deal.
The Royals are going to hit. Like, there's no doubt about it. The Royals are going to hit. Bobby Wood Jr. is going to hit. MJ Melendez, Salvi Perez, Vinny Pasquantino. even a guy like Dozier with his, maybe his some defensive concerns, he's still going to hit you 15 home runs. I like Michael Massey, especially on defense. They have the tools to be a good offensive team. It's just the pitching. We have to see what we get from everybody outside of Brady Singer, because at this point I'm sold with Brady Singer. I think he's a very good pitcher, and I think he's going to be a good pitcher for a long time. He was a guy out of Florida who I was looking at in the draft, and I thought to myself, yeah, he's going to be the real deal. And he struggled initially, but he's just a guy who has such good stuff that we're going to see him on the Royals pitching for a very long time. It's just everybody else I am nervous about.
There is a certain amount of that for sure. There's a lot of unknown, but at least it seems early on that the process that Brian Sweeney and Zach Bove have put in place is working early on. Now, whether it's going to work for everybody or not remains to be seen. But just the simple raid the zone, like just throw it down the middle if you have to, just to throw strikes, is working significantly early on. I think their K to walk ratio is still hovering around like 3.5. This spring training, while it's still a very small sample, they were 2.02 last season. I talked about that on the last episode. Like that, it was horrific. They just walked the world, and now they've almost stopped walking people. It makes me want to bring Cal Eldred back in the room just to fire him again, because it's like, what the hell was going on? But those guys it's clearly working. They're finding ways to maximize limited pitchers, so to speak, and trying to get them to use their repertoire differently, or add a pitch or shape a pitch differently. And Zach Bove has been really significant in that, as his title is Director of Major League Pitching Strategy, which is super heavy into the analytics, pitch design, everything like that. And it's working early on. The difference for me, at least from what I've seen in spring training, is stuff that you can't quantify. Like the vibes just feel different. It feels looser. It feels more like guys are excited to be there because they have a guy in Matt Quatrero who they believe in early on. It seems like everyone is bought into what he's going to do and how he's able to build relationships with the players in the locker room. That was a significant problem under the previous regime. So just having that in a looser, not laid back workplace, but just somewhere you want to be every day. And it's not, everybody is so tight and intense that it just kind of sucks the life out of everybody. That to me makes me feel optimistic that these guys they have the right people in place to move things forward. Even if this year isn't spectacular, I think we can at least see some progress. So going into 2024, you're thinking, okay, maybe they can be that kind of Baltimore type team that sneaky, frisky, maybe doesn't make the playoffs, but at least is taking those steps forward.
Agreed. And I think hiring Brian Sweeney was a really good first start. And that's why I said kind of at the beginning of this podcast, the Royals understood that their area of concern was pitching and coaching, and they overhauled it. You look at the Royals rotation as currently constructed, it's a lot of veterans, but you can tell they are trying to move in different directions and have a new philosophy of pitching. And you said it yourself, Joel, throw strikes, because guys like Lynch, Chris Bubich, Keller, a lot of these guys, because Singer doesn't really have any issues, but they're stuff first guys who can't find the zone. And when you have good stuff, all you got to do is throw strikes. So they're saying throw the ball down the middle and your ball is going to move. It won't end up down the middle if you aim down the middle. And Brian Sweeney, big on analytics with Cleveland. And Cleveland it's just a top notch when it comes to pitching. Top notch. Because, you see at the top with Bieber and McKenzie and Quantrill, I mean, they're just touching the surface of all the guys that they have in the minor leagues. And the Royals can get to that point. The problem with the Royals is they've drafted pitching high and they've gotten good arms. Remember Jackson Kowar? I know you guys do. And just hasn't ended up turning out because of the pitching philosophy. You overhaul that. You change it to, instead of nibbling around the zone, you have good stuff. Be confident in your stuff. And when you tell that to young pitchers, saying, yeah, if you throw this down the middle, your stuff's good enough to get by, even when it's down the middle. Trust your stuff. And that's what I felt like the Royals weren't doing. They weren't trusting these young pitchers, nibbling too much. Now with this new philosophy, it might not show in 2023, but you got to look at the long haul for the Royals to get back to when they had all these good pitchers with stuff who had command. So it's exciting moving forward in 2023, looking at a rotation with Jordan Lyles and Zach Greinke and Ryan Yarborough. That's not exciting now, but I think the Royals know that. They know they're going to hit this year. I think it's about 2024 and beyond.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's also, they're still on the tail end, I think, or maybe this is the year that was supposed to be 2022. It ended up being part of the year. All season long, they're going to find out who belongs and who doesn't. That's going to be hitting, that's going to be pitching. It's going to be some, minor parts of the coaching staff potentially at different levels. Like, this is a team that's going to find out who is going to be in it for the long haul. And I think the pitching thing, overhauling it at the very top made a ton of sense. Also maintaining adults in the room who knew not only how to get the data, but how to interpret the data and how to convey that to players. It's extremely, you can't even really measure how important that is, I think. And having guys like Carlos Hernandez, who you look up the velocity and you're like, oh, he has a really electric fastball. And then you look at the underlying metrics and you're like, it's really not that good. Knowing how to implement different game plans and different approaches with those guys, which is tough to do, but obviously they're getting paid for the job, and the Royals didn't have guys in place that were able to do that. I think the coaching aspect, I've really harped on the point of wanting to go to work, wanting to be there. That's worth, a few wins, maybe 2-3 wins. It's not going to make you a much better team, but when people aren't walking around on eggshells in the clubhouse, when people want to use the data, when I think the psychological aspect is there, and I wish there was a way to quantify that. Maybe there is, and I just haven't figured it out yet. But I think that is a way to get them a couple more wins. It's not going to make them good, but it is going to make them enjoy it a lot more.
That's such a good point. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I'm thinking about it just in a regular workplace. Like a regular workplace, like the baseball field. You go in and your boss has no idea what he's doing, and there doesn't seem to be a cohesive plan, and you have all this work and you're trying to get better and nobody's giving you any information to get better. What's your mindset going to be like when you walk into work on Monday morning? It's not going to be good. You're not going to want to get better because people surrounding you aren't giving you the tools to succeed. Now, it's much better. You get guys from the Rays, you get guys from the Guardians, organizations who don't have any money and yet consistently put out winning products. The trust is there. There's players there who see a plan. And especially if you're a young player, like, even though this is on the hitting side, like a Bobby Witt Jr. or MJ Melendez or Vinny Pasquantino, you can go to work knowing your team is building around you and isn't just messing around, right? There's other organizations where the Rockies, for example, like a young player coming up like an Ezekiel Tovar who's going to play shortstop. What's the plan there? Yeah, he could be a good talent and play well, but there's no one helping him get better, and there's no philosophy. I think the Royals were lost, at least on the pitching side, because they hit. I mean, they hit. But on the pitching side, now that you got it, my one problem with the Royals was I don't know if they have fully bought into their own plan yet. Because I didn't understand why, because they have so many young pitchers, and kind of this is a year where you want to give them run, right? You want to see what you have, or else then you have to move on. But signing the Jordan Lyles of the world, I understand bringing Greinke back because, of course, Greinke he's a Royals legend. Sure. But a Ryan Yarbrough, I didn't understand it. Maybe you guys can answer that question for me, but that's what I felt is I wish the Royals bought into their own plan more than they have so far.
I think the best way I could probably describe it, and this is not me speaking for the organization, but bringing in Jordan Lyles specifically, he's just an innings eater. Like, he's going to be very whelming. Like, he's fine, but he helps take a little bit of pressure off of Bubic and Lynch and Heasley. Like, well, those guys are still going to throw, but they're not needed to be the three in the rotation right now, because who knows how they handle that in, this is year 3 for them, but
my question
clearly
will they be ready?
There's still a lot to work. There's still a lot to work on for those guys. And because they're still working through some of those things, and, it takes everybody at different points to really get comfortable in the big leagues, it takes a little bit of pressure off them. And the Yarbrough thing, for me, that feels like they're going to find ways to use an opener, because that's the role that he is familiar with. He's the 5 in the rotation that, goes after the opener. Maybe we find an opportunity for him there. But again, it's a strike thrower that doesn't walk a ton, and there's something to be said for having guys like that in the system. I want to see Lynch, Bubic, Heasley, and others get more opportunities, but if it means that the veterans take the first 3 months to really, kind of show the way for some of these younger players, okay, and we'll see where it goes. I just hope that they still give the opportunity to evaluate the young pitchers, so to speak. Not a lot of them are young anymore. This is year 3 or 4 for some of them. But we'll see how it goes.
That's why I'm worried personally, because I feel like the Royals could get comfortable, right? You say Jordan Lyles is an innings eater, but then you say, well, 3 months and then let's see Bubic or Lynch, right? With Greinke, like, what are they gonna do with him? With Yarbrough, yes, it could be an opener, but wouldn't I rather have Daniel Lynch or he's doing those? It's just they stacked. Even a guy like Keller is back there too. There's a lot of just veterans who I'm afraid that the Royals, instead of buying into their own approach, they're going to get comfortable saying, well, yeah, Jordan Lyles is giving us a 4.2 ERA and over 180 innings. That's 180 innings that Daniel Lynch doesn't get. Zach Greinke, yeah, he's going to go out every 5th day and he's going to pitch, decently well. That's another 180 innings taken away from starters. So looking at this, I just wish they'd buy into their own plan, because I think the plan would work. I really do.
Yeah, and quickly, Joel, before I throw it back to you, we'll probably take a break here in a second. I think I've kind of been wondering, like, there's obviously a very fine line between, hey, we're going to field 5 or 6 young guys and just let them play, which I think, considering what they're doing, they might as well just head and fully, I don't want to use the word tank because that's absolutely not the right word, but fully embrace that element of it and see what you have. Also, like, Brady Singer threw just over 150 innings last year. Like, that's great. Bubic is maxed out at less than 130. Daniel Lynch maxed out at, I think, 131. Like, it's cool to give those guys, quote unquote, a look. But, like, if you're counting on Daniel Lynch to be there long term, and I think this year doesn't necessarily apply to him because I do think he's going to hold down a spot. But when you have 4 or 5, even 6 other guys that aren't Zach Greinke, that aren't Ryan Yarbrough, that aren't Jordan Lyles, that you're hoping can be one day a full-time starter in your rotation, regardless of whether they use an opener or not, it is interesting. And, like, some guys have options. They're going to work in AAA. It's not major league hitters they're facing. Like, it is a tightrope that they're walking. I could see some reservations with that because, like, at a certain point, again, you don't want to have a regret where you didn't give a guy an extended chance. And, like, sure, someone can get hot for a month, but then you really don't know what you have. Carlos Hernandez got hot for, what was it, even half a season? Maybe not even half a season. And now, obviously, and now he is what he is. So you could have fielded 5 or 6, went to a 6-man rotation, put those young guys out there and filtered them in. I guess Lyles is okay. Like, he's going to be there for a couple years, but, like, Greinke's not going to be there long term. Yarbrough isn't going to be there long term. Heck, Lyles technically is not going to be there long term, and you are dangerously close. Had they signed one more guy that was a vet, but also not a good vet, to a long-term deal, or 1 or 2 years even, that probably would have put a lot of people over the edge, I think.
Yeah, I think I'm just worried that at the end of the season, we're going to get a ton of innings from at least Greinke and Lyles.
Mm-hmm.
And Lynch, Bubic, Heasley, they might not go over 100 innings each. And maybe they struggle in the short term, but they're making strides. And then the Royals say, all right, because they struggled, now is finally the time to move off, because it is year 3 or year 4.
Yeah.
That's why I'm nervous, is that instead of, yes, it might be ugly in the beginning, but let it play out. It's not tanking to start the guys that you drafted who all have good stuff in their own rights. That's my worry with the Royals, is they aren't buying enough into their own philosophy, which I think works. That's my struggle.
That's a fair point. It'll be something to monitor as season goes. We're going to talk about some of the young hitters right after this. All right, Peter. So let's talk about Bobby Witt Jr. A lot was made that his season last year was underwhelming. I don't know. I think it was a weird take. He still was 2.3 F4. He probably didn't walk enough, and that might be part of the reason why, but still had 20 home runs, 30 stolen bases, one of only 5 first-year players to ever do that. He just happened to be in the same rookie class as Julio Rodriguez and Adley Rutschman. He still had a really good year. I hope people don't lose sight of that.
No, that's exactly it. Yeah, no, I don't mean to interrupt you, but that's it.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad I'm not alone here. Looking at the projections on Fangraphs, do you like Steamer or Zips better? And I'll use that.
It's funny. I made an Excel sheet and I'm looking at a ton of player prop projections on Prize Picks. So what I do is I average all 8 of them. So there's Zip DC, there's tons of different projections.
Yeah,
and they're all different. They all take in different stats. So I just average them all, and that's what I usually pop out.
Okay, so just for the ease of the listener, I use Steamer.
Those are good.
Joel's like, the best you're gonna get, damn it, is Steamer.
I guess that's just what I have in front of me. But Steamer has Bobby projected /260, 309, 451, 25 home runs, 77 RBIs, 111 weighted runs created plus, and a 3.7 F WAR. How do you think over/under on some of those? How do you feel about Bobby in year 2?
I'd take the over on pretty much anything when it comes to Bobby Witt Jr. The only reason, and we joke about this on the Just Baseball show, there's a couple of reasons why he had an underwhelming year, in quotes. Reason number 1, he didn't walk. So his WRC plus is not going to show the 20 plus home runs and the 30 plus stolen bases. He also defensively was not very good. But to his credit, he's a 21-year-old who is a shortstop who was moved to third and then had to go back to shortstop, and just a lot of different moving pieces for a Royals team that didn't meet expectations last year. What I see with Bobby Witt Jr. is Trey Turner light, because he has the
I like that comp.
all-world speed. He has tons of power, and Trey Turner is a guy who is underrated in the power department. 28 home runs in 2021, 21 last year. Bobby Witt Jr. has that in his bag. And it's not like Trey Turner is this all-world defender either. If Bobby Witt Jr. is an average defender, which I think he has all the tools to be better than that, he has a bazooka arm, he has tons of range, he has smooth hands. It was just a rough year in year 1. I'm going to give him almost a complete pass because I believe in him as much as any rookie. Reason number 2 why it was an underwhelming year was he was in the same rookie class as Julio Rodriguez, who looks like a taller Ronald Acuna Jr., and Adley Rutschman, who might already be the best catcher in baseball. That's not Bobby Witt Jr.'s fault. What Bobby Witt Jr. can do in year 2 is if he can become an average defender and take some more balls outside the zone, because that was what Bobby Witt Jr. But what we also talked on the Just Baseball show about is last year, Bobby Witt Jr., as a 21-year-old, was supposed to be a run producer. He was not this guy who, all I have to do is get on first base like a Trey Turner so everybody can drive me in. He was asked to be a big-time bat. He had to swing out of the zone occasionally to try and get a pitch to hit. And pitchers weren't even pitching that much to him. And yes, he went outside the zone at 21. I'm willing to bet that the guy with MLB bloodlines who has crazy tools across the board, give me the over on basically every single stat that you named that was coming out of Steamer.
And you know what I thought, and obviously there was a lot of intriguing stuff. It comes down to 2 things for me that I think are both, one of them is going to stay pretty similar and one of them is going to improve as he ages. He struck out 21.4% of the time as a rookie. That was below what he was posting in the minor leagues, if not consistent with what he had in AAA the year before. He's not going to strike out a ton at all. He only walked 4.7% of the time. He does not have to be good at drawing walks or be an extremely patient hitter in order for that to come up. He walked 9% of the time in his last 2 stops in the minor league level. That would be a little bit more than doubling. If he increases like 80%, 75%, he just has to improve some. And I think over the next few years, he has the power, he has the speed. I hate to be that guy. He has the intangibles. Like, everyone just raves about how hard he works. He works with the best trainer. He has a really good staff now in Kansas City. Like, he is made of the right stuff. And no, maybe he is not going to turn out to be a superstar, but to watch someone in their age, 21, 22 season, be like, yeah, time to give up on that guy after he had objectively a good rookie year on a really, really bad team. I just don't understand it. He's going to be, at the least, a very good MLB player, and the odds are he's probably going to be better than that.
I
love the Trey Turner comp.
I think he's going to win an MVP one day.
Really?
I really do. I think he has all the tools to be a superstar. Absolutely. But the reason, it's not just, the WRC plus was low and he didn't walk.
Sure.
The reason why Bobby Witt Jr. should walk more is because he has all-world speed. Like, imagine if he ups that to 9%. He doubles the walk rate. He's on base almost. He has a 350 OBP. The guy could steal 50 bases and hit 30 home runs. That's what we're dealing with a guy like this. And if he plays average defense, like imagine in an MVP race, the problem with an MVP race right now is you have Shohei Ohtani. So until he shoots off
to the National League and we'll have that conversation.
Yeah. Until he shoots off into the sun or becomes an alien or something, or just like gets off planet Earth, he's going to win the MVP basically every year, or it's going to be an Aaron Judge type season or a Vladimir Guerrero Jr. type season. But Bobby Witt Jr., if he is a fine defender with his tools, he could realistically be 30-40 at the shortstop position. And I don't even think that's crazy. I really don't. He has all the tools to be a superstar, in my opinion.
Fernando Tatis Jr. finished top 3 in an MVP a couple of years ago, playing absolutely horrendous defense. So the bar is really low there if you can hit. And he certainly has all the tools, and everything we saw from him in the minor leagues was a plus defender. I know that he can get back there. Another guy, we love him, obviously, and I know you guys at Just Baseball do as well. I'm just going to let you talk about Vinny Pasquantino because we know what he can do as Royals fans, but I just wanted more unbiased opinion here to talk about our first baseman.
Vinny Pasquantino, man, I put him on my top 100 players already. And yeah, it was aggressive. Yes, it was aggressive. And yes, I got a lot of crap for it. But Vinny Pasquantino last year had a zone contact percentage of 90.4%.
It's crazy.
Zone contact. So that's all the balls he makes contact with in the zone. Jeff McNeil was at 88% last year. That's what we're dealing with 30
batting time.
That's Jordan area. Now, I'm not saying that he will be Jordan, but I'm saying he has that in him. Vinny Pasquantino has a great swing, good head on his shoulders, and so much power. But the reason I love Vinny Pasquantino so much is he doesn't sacrifice anything to get to power. He's not swinging all over the place, right? He takes his walks. He doesn't strike out. He hits the ball to the other part of the field. He is not only a player with a ton of upside, but a super high floor. I fully expect him to be a top 10 first baseman in Major League Baseball next year and maybe approach the top 5. I really think the world of this guy as an offensive player. And he's not a bad defender, but even if he was the worst defender on planet Earth, I'd still love him. Because the bat is, I think, special.
Yeah,
so,
Go ahead,
Peter, Jack, and Aram have done a series of their top 10 players at each position in baseball, and they had Vinny 8 after 70 big league games. I can't remember who said it. I think it might have been Jack said he could be top 5 by the end of the season. Fully believe in that. I mean, I'm looking at his steamer projections here. 277, 361, 474, 135 weighted runs created plus, which is 5th among all first basemen. Projected like we're up there with Goldschmidt, Vladdy, Pete Alonso. Kind of nuts. 2.9 FWAR, 22 home runs, 79 RBIs. Feels like a floor. Like, that feels like a very conservative floor for what Vinny could do.
Yeah, that's a conservative year, which is crazy. 135 WRC plus, 35% better than average. Conservatively, that's what we're looking at with this man. Like, Bobby Witt Jr. has all the tools in the world, but the best hitter on this team is going to be Vinny Pasquantino. And that's not a slight to Bobby Witt Jr. Vinny Pasquantino is going to be one of the best hitters in this division. Vinny Pasquantino is going to be one of the best hitters in the American League. Bobby Witt Jr. can do so much more than Vinny on the baseball field in terms of running, in terms of playing shortstop, of course. But Vinny P, that bat plays.
Yeah, and you talk about, man, I hate to be that guy. Again, I said it with Witt Jr. He has the intangibles. Like, if there's a guy that you'd bet on that's a youngster on a bad team, obviously Witt's up there. Pasquantino to be like, literally you look up. Like, Billy Butler was like a fan favorite, and he had some good seasons, and he had some good production. Pasquantino, he's going to have really, really, really good seasons for a long time. Everyone loves him. Great teammate, great locker room guy, great clubhouse guy. It's impossible to not like him, and like, he's not going to be overhyped. His profile is so freaking complete as a hitter. You can poke holes in the defense. Okay, I think he's going to be an average defender for most of his career, if not maybe slightly above for a couple years, slightly below. It's first base, don't really care. The speed, whatever. Maybe he gets a little faster, maybe he doesn't. Again, don't really care.
Okay.
His profile as a hitter at the age of however old he is, 23, 24, as a rookie last year, was ridiculous. He wasn't just one of the best hitters among rookies. He was one of the better hitters in baseball in that sample size, and that's going to hold for a long time. Like, you talk about the sophomore slump, you talk about guys that maybe struck fool's gold that aren't going to be that good. He doesn't fit any of that. He is going to be this good for a while. And people want to say he's due for regression. People want to say he's not going to be, they bring up Nick Prado's potential. Nick Prado has a ton of potential because of the athleticism, because of what he can do at first base, because his power is super legit, but the profile just doesn't compare. Like, Vinny Pasquantino is the Royals' first baseman for a long time. With Salvador Perez aging, you can't really pigeonhole him into DH, so that whole situation gets interesting. But like a mainstay in the lineup for the entirety of the time the team has control on him, it's a no-brainer.
He's got a lot of Joey Votto in him.
Ooh, love that comp too. Vinny Pasquantino, All-Star 2023?
Yeah. I think he's going to go crazy.
I know a guy who said that.
I think he's going to go crazy.
I said it in game 162.
He was supposed to struggle last year, right? Man hit 295 with an 833 OPS. He's supposed to struggle. He hit 10 home runs. And now he's just going to get better and better, and probably hit 30 home runs next year and hit 280, 290 with a 380 OBP and a 500 slug. He's going to be awesome. And he probably, even if he's the worst defender on earth, like I said, I do not care. I don't care if he never steals a base in his career, because he's going to give me 30 home runs every year. He's going to take his walks. He's going to be smart. His swing decisions are excellent. It's one of the safest profiles of a hitter at this age. And it's just, all we got to do is watch it play out, and it's going to be awesome.
I'd never done the research, and I want to look into it, but I can't think of, plate appearances be damned. How many rookies have come up and walked more than they struck out in their first run of the big leagues?
It's
pretty nuts.
Soto? Wander?
Yeah, I was going to say, not a very
think
big list.
Soto might be the only dude that I get that off the top of my head I could do without looking further into it.
Maybe Alejandro Kirk?
That's a good one. That could be.
Yeah, I know
Joel's going to do a live lookup, isn't he?
I think he walked more than he struck out last year. But yeah, I think Soto, Wander, and maybe Kirk.
Okay, so Kirk,
And all those guys were amazing.
Kirk came close. So in 2021, in 60 games, he struck out 11.6%, walked 10%, and then he walked more than he struck out last year by almost a full percent.
Yep.
Alejandro Kirk, short, thick king. We love that guy. That's like a cult hero of baseball right there.
Exactly.
All right, we're going to take our last break. We're going to come back, hit a couple more Royals topics, and then just talk ball for the last 15 minutes of this thing. We'll be right back. So one last Royals topic here, Peter, and then we're just going to talk some ball because we're getting close to the season, and I want to talk about more than the Royals, frankly. Between Chris Bubic and Daniel Lynch, who has a better chance to really break out and be a legit option in the rotation moving forward? Because both have looked pretty solid in spring.
Daniel Lynch. I am worried about Bubic because Bubic's fastball consistently grades out terribly, to put it nicely. Like, I'm saying it's terrible, and that's putting it nicely. It's one of the worst in Major League Baseball. And it's different if he had a sinker and a cutter and other pitches to mix in the hard stuff, right? But when you throw a pitch upwards of 50% of the time and opponents hit 350 off it, you are going to be in trouble. And when Chris Bubic only has two other secondaries and none of them are variations of fastballs, that's where I get nervous. With Lynch, I feel like it's just a command issue. Like, if he follows the Royals' way, this new way of coaching with Brian Sweeney and Zach Bove and all the new guys that they brought in, I think he can find it. And he's a guy over here at Just Baseball who we always thought, man, the stuff plays. It's just you got to throw it in the strike zone. Bubic doesn't have the stuff or the command. That's my issue with Bubic. Yeah. Lynch, I still am a believer in Daniel Lynch. I think he's got multiple pitches that he can get outs with in terms of swings outside the zone, and his heater is better than Chris Bubic's. It's just a command thing. So I'm going Lynch, and I'm going Lynch convincingly. Like, I think it's Lynch by a good margin.
I agree that I think it's Lynch. In defense of Chris Bubic, two things. He started throwing a slider now this year, which has helped. Like, it actually looks like a solid pitch. He raved about it last season that he was working on it and then was told not to throw it. Now he actually has a coaching staff that's going to let him throw it, and it's actually working. And he flashed 96 a couple outings ago. Like, I think too often it feels like it's the old adage of aiming, and he's just trying to get it in there at 88, 89, 90, which is just sad. When he's actually gone back and just let it rip at 93, 94, touching 95, 96, the fastball, even though it's bad, still plays a little bit better just because he's throwing harder. So I am almost on the train of just throw him in the bullpen and let it eat for an inning and see where it goes. You want to throw him in on let him do a spot start every now and then, fine. But I'm almost just at the point where let him just go throw as hard as he can for an inning and see what happens.
So 2 really quick things off of that. You mentioned Bubic in the bullpen. Last year when he was in the gray area, and I'm not imagining this, there are some articles out there about it, his velo was up. He was like almost touching 97 at times. Like he was really pumping, quote unquote. It was gas for him. Like it was straight fire for Chris Bubic standards. And like, sure, that's going to sacrifice some control and command, but I think his future is as a reliever, whether he's a long reliever, whether you give him, a high leverage inning or whatever. I think that's what he's going to do, which is okay because you're not Jackson Coaring the whole thing, where I think the Royals are eventually going to have to do that, where they just say this isn't going to work out. And something at the lower level, Asa Lacy potentially happens with that. I think Bubic can still prove value to a team, and I have to choose my words carefully for this part, but so I covered the Royals for SI last season. I think of any of the pitchers they have, like the young guys right now, he mentally will like benefit the most from having more new people in the room. I think like just the buy-in is going to be, I don't want to say totally different because he was there and he was present, he was working hard, but I think he's like amped and juiced and jacked and like ready to attack it this year. And I think that he fully trusts everyone there. So I'm with you, Pete. I think it's going to be him. I don't think it's particularly close. Like I'm not placing bets on Daniel Lynch to like break out or anything, but the logic is there. I think the person is there. Like I said, the infrastructure is now there in the pitching department. So I think if you're posing it between those two, it's got to be Lynch. I mean, there might be a better case for someone else, maybe if I thought long enough, maybe at a lower level. But between those two, just the stuff is different. The profile's different. And I think you're going to see a different Daniel Lynch this season for sure.
Yeah, that also, Daniel Lynch has also reshaped his slider to look different than the curveball, and so that's helped him a lot in spring early too. Last Royals question. What do you think the Royals can hit their over win total? I've seen around like 69.5-ish, I think is what I'm seeing. Do you think they can get to somewhere? I think they can get to 75. Is that reasonable?
I think that is reasonable. I would go over. I don't know if I'm going to actually bet it,
Sure.
but I would lean over, and I think I wrote in my article too that I would lean over because they're just going to hit too much to be in the 60s, I think. And, with Vinny, with Bobby, with MJ, with Salvi back, it's just too potent of a lineup to lose that many games. Like, the pitching would really have to fall apart. And with these new coaching hires, with some potential breakouts from Lynch or Brady Singer taking that even next step up, like Jordan Lyles is not a bad pitcher. He's just, the reason I'm afraid is because he's going to give you 180 innings of a 4.2 ERA, and that's good enough to get by. It's just you want to give the other guys a shot. But Greinke, I assume, will have a little bit of revamp there. I think that overall this is a 75-win team. Do I think they're going to make the playoffs? No. Do I think they are going to overtake the Guardians or anything? No. But could they compete for that third place? I think they could. It's not like the White Sox have done anything lately, and they're falling apart too. The Twins look better, but they also won 78 games last year. I think they will be competitive within this division, and I think if the Royals fully buy into their own plan, it'll be very exciting for the Royals fans this year because they'll see something building unsimilarly to a lot of other teams in the same bucket as them right now.
I'm with it. I literally dittoed pretty much everything you said. I think it was on radio last week, 73 and what would that be? 80. My math is terrible. 73 and whatever it would be. Yeah. I predicted that. Like, I think definitely over the 69.5. Like, I don't think they finish in the 60s again for the foreseeable future, pending like a complete collapse this year, and who knows what happens after that. But like you said, they're going to hit too much. The pitching, while it's I have question marks about it still, seriously. Like, again, having people in the building who will help and having enough continuity there from vets, I think, is enough to keep them out of the 60s. I don't know how much higher I'll go after that, but it's a pretty easy hammer over 69 for me.
Yep. Like when I bet my money, I bet on pitching, and it's just to be seen what this Royals team looks like.
Yeah.
But if you said over under, I'm going over. But I bet on teams like the Mariners or on the Astros. Like I just bet on teams who I know are going to pitch from the number one starter to the last guy in the bullpen. Got to pitch to make it in this league.
All right, so just to talk a little baseball, from a national perspective here, I want to talk to you about, this isn't gambling advice. This is, just a little tie into your show there and what you put out on Twitter for all your gambling picks. But to do some futures MLB awards, I sent you my list a couple of weeks ago, but I'm just curious, what do you think is the best play for a award of someone that could legitimately win it? And then what do you think is a really good value play? Not necessarily someone that can someone that could break out and win something from a lower value.
So a value play that I've been looking at is Wander Franco to lead the league in hits at plus 2,000.
I like
and
that.
The reason I like it is because Wander Franco, similarly to Vinny Pasquantino, has maybe the safest profile of a hitter that we have seen. It's just he played 81 games in 2021 and 87 games last year. But if he stays healthy, has all the tools in the world to do that. But it's about staying healthy. So I think it's a bet on health. Obviously, he could get run down by some, but a lot of the hit leaders, like Luis Arraez, right? He's now in the National League. Wander Franco, I think at plus 2,000 to lead the league in hits is a good value bet. Another plus 2,000, I think it's plus 2,400. And I haven't bet any of these yet. I'm still looking, and I don't even have official picks yet, but these are just, I'll give you some insight into what I'm looking at. I really like Francisco Lindor to win the MVP in the National League. And the problem with betting on the MVP in the American League is it's Shohei's award, and it's like someone else could have a crazy year, but it's hard to bet on the American League MVP at this point. The National League is wide open. Machado just signed his big deal. Guys like Austin Riley just signed their big deal. And Francisco Lindor signed his big deal, but now he's been comfortable in New York. He had a great season last year. He is, even if he's terrible defensively, he's a lock to have 5 wins above replacement because the defense is all world. But in that lineup as a run producer, if he's 30 home runs and he's 280, and he plays the best defense in the National League, and the Mets are the best team in the league, he might win the MVP. And he's far below guys like Trey Turner, other shortstops who I think, for my money, he's the best shortstop in baseball. And he's had years like this with Cleveland. I think he has great value in the National League. So those are two plays that are plus 2,000 or over that I'm really probably going to end up playing for 2023.
I did not know Francisco Lindor had 6.8 F4 last year. I somehow completely overlooked that. Holy crap.
Yeah. I think for my money, he is the best shortstop in baseball. People just forget that the defense is the best in the world, and he hits 30 home runs, and the batting average is high, drives in a ton of runs, affects the game on the base pass. He is a born leader. He's one of my favorite players in baseball. I think he's just fantastic.
He's so easy to root for. That's what I like about him. I really have always liked Francisco.
I'm curious what you think about this. I just sprinkled a couple bucks on it, just more out of morbid curiosity.
How many is a couple?
Literally $2.
Oh, okay. I respect that.
If I bet any more than a couple dollars on stuff, my wife would kill me. So I have to, I have to keep the reins on it. But I put $2 on Shohei to win Cy Young plus 1,200. Do you think he gets enough innings to actually contend for the award this year?
That's the problem. And that's why I probably won't bet on Shohei to win the Cy Young.
Yeah.
He has some of the best stuff in Major League Baseball. No doubt about it. He was one of the best pitchers in baseball last year. The new Stuff Plus, Location Plus, stats on Fangraphs, I think he's top 5, basically everything. But it's just, they're running a 6-man rotation. I host a podcast with Tucker Davidson, a lefty in that rotation for this year. They go 6 deep. So for him to get 200 innings, it's going to be really, really challenging, especially with guys like Luis Castillo for the Mariners. Even a guy like Framber, I think, has great Cy Young odds. Oh, yeah. We saw the swing and miss stuff with the curveball in the playoffs. That's just going to continue to play. Garrett Cole is due for a bounce back after some terrible home run to fly ball luck. You still have Shane Bieber, Tristan McKenzie taking a step forward, all those Rays guys. It's a crowded pool, and I think when voters look at Shohei, they're going to look at MVP before they look at Cy Young, and I just don't know if the innings are going to be there. But if you're talking about just one of the best pitchers and betting on him at that value, it's great value because he's probably a top 5 or 6 pitcher in Major League Baseball. And like when you get 100 on a guy like that, you sometimes just have to, right?
Yeah. You mentioned Luis Castillo. I got him at plus 1,700. I feel pretty good about that one.
Nice.
That's a great bet. I'm a big fan of him. I'm a Mariners bandwagon this year. I love them.
Mariners since I was 2.5 years old, so we'll take it. Now the thing with Shohei is if he gets to like 165 innings and it's the most dominant 165 innings in the league, like I feel like people are going to sway that, especially if someone has an Aaron Judge type season, that it takes away MVP votes for him. People could go, let's give him the pitching award too, just to have that. And could you imagine if he wins both?
Yeah, I wouldn't put it past him. I got a painting of him right behind me. He's the most talented baseball player of all time.
Yeah, I try not to take anything he does for granted because we have never seen anything like it. We will never see anything like it again, and we're going to watch him make $500 million this offseason. And it's
my favorite Shohei Ohtani stat is that he ran the 5th fastest home to first time last year. I mean, that's just unfair.
What is that? What can't the guy do?
What is that?
Poke a hole in his resume and point out something the guy can't do and root against him. And I know there were very, very weird people that didn't like that he was invading American baseball or whatever. There's always that crowd that thinks it's a big deal. It's fantastic for the game. He's a fantastic player. He's awesome at everything. He doesn't fail. Well, I guess the team, he personally doesn't fail. It just shows that when you have 2 of the best players of this generation on one team, it shows how much of a team game it is because they still aren't doing anything. Yeah, it's
baseball's the best. It's the best sport in the world because you can have Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout on your team and finish with 70.
It doesn't matter. Yeah,
it's the best sport in the world. One thing last to say about Shohei Ohtani with the innings, Corbin Burns did it in 2021. It's not impossible.
Yeah.
So I like I think it's a good bet.
Well, I'm hoping I can win a few bucks on it. Peter, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. We'll definitely do it again sometime during the season. Definitely want to make this a regular thing. You're awesome at what you do and what you guys do at Just Baseball Media. I absolutely love it. Consume all that content as much as you can, as much as I can. You guys need to do the same. Be sure to subscribe to everything that Peter and everyone is doing at Just Baseball Media. You're watching this on YouTube. Smash that like button, smash that subscribe, hit that notification bell so you know when this show and others go live. Subscribe to the audio side as well, and we will talk to you next week.
Thanks for watching this production of KC Sports Network, the fastest growing sports media network in Kansas City. Check out these videos that feature our team of more than 15 former players, insiders, and analysts bringing you the best Chiefs coverage you can find. Entertain, educate, inform. KC Sports Network.